first module, we're going to talk about introduction to supply chain modeling. Why I don't start with introduction to supply chain? Because I will talk about it, but later on I will move on with the perspective on how does modeling techniques or modeling approach going to work for those supply chain problems that we going to discuss. Okay, the content will look like this. So first we are going to talk about what is supply chains, the importance of supply chains, and then we move on to supply chain modelings, or as I mentioned earlier, the modelings is part of supply chain analytics tools. What are those? Later on you will see. And then how to use, what are the types of supply chain models available, and then the supply chains models where we can use it, including the challenge of using these supply chain models, and several advanced topics that we may not cover it here, but you might found it's getting more and more common in the discussions about supply chains in practice or in the industry. Okay, so first, to the basic, what is supply chain? Okay, well, if we talk about supply chain, it's actually, uh, we can say it's a set of activities which has an approach to how to utilize or efficiently integrate, okay, how you deliver your products or services to the end customer. Okay, take a look of this one, a sugar, which we consume daily, or some of you may start to reduce your consumption of sugar right now, or well, most of us has the at least consume this types, even though not in this type, but consume sugars in some daily basis. So if we don't deliver it or to the other party again, we call ourselves as an end consumer. Okay, um, but this the journey of a sugars to the end customers is most often not straightly goes down from the source of it. We know that sugar come from sugar cane, right? The farmer of sugar cane, they may have vast areas, crops of sugar canes, and then these need to be manufactured, or first delivered, after it being harvested, delivered to the manufacturers, and then go to the distributors, uh, and then have another logistics activity to the retailers, either it's big or small, and then it's later on come up to the our hands as an end customer, in which we end customer, the definition will be some some party or all the some party or entities that doesn't uh, have be the one, the last that consume these products or services. Okay, the goals of this chains for as a organization would of course to minimize the system wide cost, not only from one party to another party. For example, oh, if we only think about from the retailer to our hand, how to make it the best cost possible, the lowest cost possible, maybe it will not be fair to the distributor. Okay, for example, oh, if you want your customer to get the lowest cost possible, you want it to be like the closest possible to your house. For example, oh, I want to buy sugars just right beside my house, I can buy it, right? But it is maybe not fair for the distributors because they need to have quite large area to uh, put a stock of sugars in their place so that they can deliver it to you as soon as possible. If it's not possible to have a lot of warehouse for the distributors nearby your city, so that they need to strategically locate their warehouse. So that this is called a trade-off that we need to deal, where the whole party involved here for the delivery of the sugar will be need to have their trade-off where and what to make several right things in their decisions to make the system-wide cost minimized, whether in which the products they need to deliver or the service need to be in the right time, right locations, and right quantities. So basically, there are three flows being managed in the supply chains, which are products, okay, or services. It flows from um, the supplier side through manufacturer to distributor and retailer and to customers. Normally, it's a forward flow like that, and then as well as the money in which it the opposite of the product flow. When you give products to the other party, normally it will be compensate with money flow, right, in return. And then another thing is information flow, in which nowadays we use it very often because information's flow is important to know exactly whether the product flow and money flow were done correctly. Okay, so these are three flow that you manage along the way in your activity in supply chain. Okay, another perspective or a concept of seeing supply chains, if in the sugar supply chains we look it like that, actually we can conceptualize it into a generic form like this one. So it is illustrated here. Uh, you can position your company in the middles of the chains normally, whether you are in actually in uh, the the end side of the chain, or the beginning side of the chains, or at the end side of the chains. For example, if you are manufacturer earlier, manufacturer of the sugars. Of course, you may have a suppliers, right? Suppliers that not only from the sugar cane farmers, but maybe also, oh, I need some other chemicals from this one, or maybe I need some other tools from these other suppliers. So you will also have suppliers, and then your customers will be like the the big distributors in that represents several retailers in the area. So that will be your customer. So uh, uh, this perspective, this generic perspective, that your company in the middle, you always have supplier and then you always have customer. That is a generic perspective that we call as a supply chain organization. Okay, supply chain organization in macro perspective is that you always have supplier, you are in the middle as a manufacturer or the producer of the service or product, then you will deliver to your customer. And then as I mentioned earlier, we have some special customer, we call it end customer, is the last customer in the chain. Okay, and supply chain management includes all stage that whether it's directly or indirectly related to this one. If you ask where does the logistics takes a role here, there in the red lines, where you have things that connect all of this entity, there where logistics takes place. Okay, to help to deliver the products or services from one entity to another entity. Okay, and then why do we have supply chain management division in our company? Sometimes like that, right? If we say that supply chain is talking about this whole macro perspective, so what does the supply chain management in the company were doing their roles? So a supply chain management in micro's perspective, within each company, it will include really depends, but basically it will include several activities or functions of how to fulfill customer requests. So they need to deal with a lot of department, or sometimes also it becomes one part of their department. For example, sometimes some organization put procurement under supply chain department, and then this department will deal with finance, will deal with IT, as well as productions. Okay, sometimes logistics and warehouse also included in the supply chain department, and then they will deal with the sales and marketings and then productions. Okay, so basically now it's very common to have a supply chain management department in the company. Okay, within the company, because we in the business, it is getting more and more recognized that supply chain is important for the flow of your business. Okay, and another things that I want to mention is that so that one macro and micro. Okay, and I just want to repeat again that along these supply chain organizations, they basically manage three things, which are the material flow or product flow, which goes from the upstreams to the downstreams, and then the money flow from downstreams to upstreams, and then as the respective of the material flow and information flow, which go both way to make sure the material flow and the money flow were done correctly. Okay. So next, okay, this is getting more and more considered and criticals uh, as one of the business component or business functions that is needed in the business. So basically, supply chain as a detail here, where can facilitate smooth flow of goods and services from the upstream to the downstreams, and then manage to their goal is to minimize the cost. And if you can minimize the cost, you can have the maximize customer value. So this is another term, a customer value. Okay, a customer value is something like how does your end customer, which I mentioned earlier, the one that consume your products at the end of the chains, valued your product. Okay, take example here, the product of uh, Apple products. Okay, Apple products actually, one of the products that is most common were the phones, the iPhone. Let's take example. If you break down the components of iPhone, the price of the iPhone may be not as expensive as it's currently sold to the end customer, right? However, due to the power of their supply chains, okay, they take the component from a reliable source. They develop it in their the R&D very well. They are able to have the distributor, the chain of the distributors plays very well in each respective country or region. So they've done their supply chains, we can say, quite exceptional. So that's why when the customer see their products, even they know that if the price is not that uh, the basic ingredients of the phone maybe not that currently tag on the price that they buy it, they still buy it because they valued, okay, the customer valued the products is higher than the basics ingredients of the foods. Okay, those are the customer value. It's what how your end customer valued your services or the product, and supply chain play a big roles on it. Okay, and then supply chain can also help your business to adapt to change in demand and market conditions. So if you have a great supply chains and you handle it very well, whenever there is a sudden disruptions, you can somehow survive, and then it can help you adapt with the new demand or market conditions. Okay, I would suggest you to, if you want to learn the best practice for a global supply chain. Okay, well, maybe each area, each country has their own local hero for the company. But here I took example that I think it's already accepted globally. These three company, Amazon, Apple, Unilever, were some of the company that has the best supply chains in the world. For example, Amazon, they are one of the global leader in supply chain efficiency. Their supply chain strategies such as having automatic warehouse. So if you go to YouTube, find a video about how Amazon manage their warehouse. It is one of the most advanced warehouse where robotics play a lot of roles there, and then it's fully automatics and then very efficient. So I guess I am suggesting you check it out. And they're also famous for their last mile delivery systems. So how they can provide a rapid delivery. Even some area in the US, they have same day delivery, or I think there are previously delivery using drone, which where you you order the products on the websites, and it's instantly delivered to your house using the aerial vehicles helps. And Apples, I did mention earlier, they have a very complex because their product were being used everywhere around the world. So every time, even though we can also see that sometimes they also have uh, how to say challenge, especially during the launch of new products. So every time they launch new products, it is very critical to have these products can be consumed by the consumer and consumer as soon as possible, right? In every part of the world. That's why they need to plan it well related to the launch of the product, because they need to produce it before. And then not to mention also they need to predicts or forecast the demand of their new products very well. Well, sometimes we see that, oh, Apple has the late delivery for their new, let's say, iPhone 14s in several regions. uh well, it's shown that it means that, okay, sometimes they miss forecast, because that one of the characteristic of a forecasting, right? However, missed by how much is some things that we can mitigate. Okay, that's things that you will learn later on when we discuss about forecasting. uh, but it's also in another perspective, it's also proof that where their product is accepted very well in the market. Okay, So another company that also one of the uh, leader in the supply chains best practice was Unilever. They were the leading player in consumer good industry. I think you can all check that many of the products they have where a lot of variety of products. So they it should be sourced well, it will should be delivered well, also manufactured well. It's needs a very well supply chain designs to be so agile and responsive in change of the demand market. Okay, what does Unilever do best is that they use advanced analytics. Okay, this is another keywords. Unilever, okay, currently known for their advanced analytics. They able to predict the demands, and then plan the inventory, plan the production schedule using the data that they already have in their company, as well as they also have the the current initiative of driving the products into a more sustainable product. So if you see a lot of Unilever campaign is to go green. So that one is one of the current hot issue in supply chain. Okay, how to endorse sustainability in your supply chain. We have specific topics discussed at that one, but if you are interested, I guess you can try to search using the keywords of either green supply chain or sustainable supply chain. Okay, next. Okay, this is just a quick review. So after that descriptions about supply chain, now if I can summarize. What is the importance of supply chain and how supply chain contribute to your business value? Okay, in the concept of value chain, okay, you can search this one. This is another keywords that you can also mention that will also relate. Okay, value chains. It is not similar with supply chain, but basically supply chain is some things that you need to manage well in order to have a bigger improvement in your value chain. Value chain is how you improve the value of your products and your services. Okay, there are several important factors or important and also important divisions that can help you to improve your value chains. And then one of the approach will be to have a better supply chain, to have a better supply chain. Okay, so supply chain can help you have a better business value, which can be represented in the value chain of your business by having this one. Number one is that you can have a better cost saving. Okay, supply chain, most of the supply chain techniques that we learn related to this one, how to have a more efficient in terms of operating costs, waste, and increase profitability. Okay, talk about profitability. One of the um, uh, goals of supply chain is to have supply chain management is to have your customer to have a better more satisfied customer. Okay, so when you have your products, that one delivered in the right time, right quantity, right quality, of course, this will help you to improve your customer satisfaction. And later on, I will also show you that supply chain strategy is one of the integral frameworks that can help you to gain competitive advantage for your company. Okay, and this one it also help you to mitigate the risk Okay, it's a risk management tools as well. And then the final one that is often being discussed currently is to have a more sustainable that a business that consider more sustainability and environmental concern in the and then help you to gain more reputations. Okay. Okay. Next. Ah, now enough about supply chain management. Now we move on a little bit about supply chain modeling. Why do we need supply chain modeling? So earlier I mentioned that, okay, if you have a good supply chain strategy, it would be one of the integral part to gain a competitive advantage for your company. So competitive advantage is some things in your company that can help you to win the competition. Okay. Let's say, for example, oh, if we talk about I don't know, in is it still a good example right now? For example, in some books which I read, one of the competitive advantage for a pizza company called Domino Pizza. Have you ever heard Domino Pizza? We have Pizza Hut. In Indonesia, we have Pizza Hut and many pizza. But one of the competitive advantage of Domino Pizza is they can deliver it fast. Okay, so they are compared to the other one. If you want to have your pizza fast, still hot on when they arrive at your home and delicious. So that's one things that can be your competitive advantage. Okay, an example. So in order to have that, of course, you need to have something in your company, right? In order to support that. What was the supply chain strategy? And according to this framework, which developed by Professor Sunil Chopra in his books, supply chain strategy were determined by in which structure you are going to have the tendency for your supply chain, whether you are going to have an efficient supply chain to minimize the cost, or more responsive to the market, in which when there is a needs from the customer, you want to as much as possible to satisfy it. One of them is an example of Domino that I mentioned. Pizza, if you order and then took so long, and then when it's arrived at your home, it's already not hot, it's already cold, and that's not good, right? So Domino trying to have a competitive advantage by applying supply chain strategy tend to have a more responsive by having it delivered fast. Okay, and then later on, in order to have that, you need to break it down into 6 driver. Okay, whether it's first is the facility where you should locate your store, for example. The information, how do you manage the information flow? Okay, the inventory, which component of your pizza should you have ready every times in your store, for example. The transportation, how do you want to deliver to your customer, okay, to make it still hot. Okay, for example, you should have a thermal box in your delivery vehicles, or even right now some of the company already start experimenting on what if we use drone that have a thermal that can deliver faster, for example, like that. Information, sourcing the material, and including the pricing. It's another strategy, a structure that you need to define in order to support your supply chain structure and supply chain strategy. Okay, all of these things we will discuss in the supply chains, and then that will be useful to make decisions. Okay, in supply chains, most of the things that we discuss is how to make the optimized decision. Okay, here are several examples of questions that often meet in the discussion about supply chain. For example, how many stocks were required for each product? For example, your company have several products, product A, B, C, and D, and E, and then in order to, okay, now it depends. You want to have a responsive supply chain or efficient? If you want to have an efficient supply chain, maybe you need to reduce the safety stock, because safety stock is your money, your financials were translated into a product, right? You cannot do anything about it. And then the products can be spoiled, can be a lot of things happen to your product. So in order to have efficient supply chain, maybe you need to reduce the safety stock. However, if you want to go more responsive, okay, responsive means every time the customer wants to order, you want it to have it ready, right? So you need to have more stock being ready, right? So in that case, you need to increase the safety stock. But what is the optimal number of stock? That's when the supply chain modeling comes into play, or supply chain analytic come into play. Okay. Another questions like how many products will be distributed to each distributor? Well, it's the same question with the previous one. Or another like, okay, some your company may not produce all the things that necessary to build your product or service, right? For example, if you are in the service industry, let's say uh, a hotel industry, okay, it's related to the tourism, a hotel industry. Your product or service is the room itself, right? The amenities, the experience staying in your hotels, the bed that you provide. But let's say if your hotels also provide massage services, maybe you are not the one who provided, right? So your hotel employee you don't have employee that specialists in doing massage and spa. So you need to decide whether you want to hire an employee that can deliver those services, or you buy another services. Okay, you find another supplier that can help you to provide those services under your hotel. Okay, so it's a decision to make or buy. It's another things that you can discuss in the supply chains modeling, and as well as the rest of it. Okay, but basically the goals is to have an optimized supply chain decisions. What do we call an optimize? It's have this 5 rights mantra: right price, right amount, right time, right place, and right quality. Okay. Okay, up until here, I think this should be still okay, because it's just introductions. I know it's a little bit different with the introduction of general basic supply chain, because I directly jump to how to create the decision model for supply chain. But if you somehow have difficulty to catch up, please let me know. Next, now, if you break down in more detail about the decisions that we need to take in supply chain based on the decision time horizon, we can divide it into these three. I try to illustrate it in the pyramids perspective, because well, it's actually if you plot the number, strategic decision, tactical, and operationals, the number of strategic decision will be less than tactical decisions, less than the operational decisions, and so on. That's why I use pyramids as the representative. What is strategic decision? Strategic decisions normally is a long-term decisions that done by top management. It is normally represent the groundwork of the entire supply chain process. It consider a big picture decisions, and most likely this type of decision is more subjective. In this case, data is somewhat important, but most likely for a strategic decision, the decision will be subjective. Okay, and human judgment is more necessary. Okay, here's the executive will comes into play. This is the example. This is deciding the network design, the network the vendor, how you will create the revenue in revenue management, capacity planning, and so on. Another thing is tactical decisions. It's a medium-term decisions. Normally, it involve the leaders or the operational manager for each specific department. This is done for a more specific process, and the decision is somewhat between subjective and objective. Okay, you will normally use an aggregated data. For example, oh, this decision will be about doing the inventory. Okay, which product we should have more in our warehouse, which product should we have less. So you need to do inventory management analytics. Then you can decide later on, okay, this will be products that is stored more, this one will be less, but that will be done periodically, not daily, right? It's difficult to done it every day because we will took some time. So that's why you done it, let's say, periodic review, a quarter review, sometimes it's every semester, or sometimes every year. Okay, these are the examples of the tacticals tacticals problems that needs the that's decided in the supply chain. And then finally is an operational problems, or creating decisions for an operational problems in supply chain, in which it normally is a day-to-day problems, need to day-to-day decision, sometimes weekly. But it's despite its small and it needs details data. If you fail to do this efficiently, it will build up into, let's say, for example, routing decisions. You need to do routing for your vehicles that you dispatch every day, right? Maybe it looks like, oh, for now, if you do this, the decisions like this, let's say you go to customer 1, 2, 3 every day like that. But actually, it is more efficient if you go to 2, 1, 3, for example. If you see it's day to day, maybe the saving is not much. Okay, for example, oh, you can save by $1 every day. But if you go uh, through the routes daily for 365 day, so it's already $365. If you go it further, like 4 or 5 years, then the saving is even more. So that's why it's important to have a good operational decision as well. Okay, next. Um, this one, okay, this is the normally decision, either it's in supply chain. The nature of the decision in supply chain is that uh, we made it before we know it, when it will happen in the future. So it means that, okay, the decisions that we made today to anticipate the problems that we will come up later on, or the real data that will come up in the future. So we need to take account of all the known and unknown informations. Okay, and because of that, normally the decisions will involve several trade-offs. Okay, trade-off mean like sometimes you need sacrifice things to give you the best decisions that available. For example, oh, if I have a lot of inventory, will affect to higher costs. However, more inventory will increase your service levels, right? Wait a moment. Well, sorry for the disturbance a little bit. Uh, okay, so supply chain decisions in each of the layer normally have the trade-off like that. Whether you sacrifice the cost to have a higher service level, or you may sacrifice the service level to give a better cost. It can be several factors, like for example, speed versus cost or risk versus return. Okay, let's say you have a higher investment, so it may have a higher risk. However, the return for those investment may be higher. Okay, so what you want actually lower risk but higher investment, that sometimes not be possible. Okay, so our goals on modeling this decision would be provide the several options that can be the best uh, the best option for this trade-off. Okay. Okay. Next. Okay. Here's are several example. Okay. Maybe you don't have. Some of you may know already the terms. Some of you may not. We will discuss several of this approach in along the way. But I just want to give you some example of how the supply chain modeling comes into play in helping the decision makers to take action on those problems. For example, if we want to decide how many to order for the inventory problems, right? For example, oh, I have this amount of demand periodically, and then the cost of ordering is this amount, and then cost of the inventory is this amount. How many should I order in order to give me uh, uh, the most efficient cost during these periods, let's say of 1 year. You can use economic order quantity models. Okay, this is the one model that is often uh, uh, being discussed in the inventory management and inventory optimizations problem. For example, if still related to inventory, in order to determine when to order, when is the best time to order, you can use the reorder point, reorder point to decide when to the best time to order for your inventory problems. To determine what is the maximum inventory that you provide. This is another type of inventory policy. We have several S and many things. So we will discuss this one also later on when we talk about the inventory problems. This one, where to put the distribution center. We have gravity location models. If you never seen this one, maybe we will discuss this when we discuss about network optimization. To determine how many facility, and then what should be in the flow of those facility. This is mixed integer programming. So this is another type of supply chain, not tools that you can use for solving optimization problems. Okay, I think uh, there is a class for that one. The one that I taught as well, the optimization techniques model. It discussed a lot of mixed integer programming. Uh, this one I also mentioned earlier. This is a multi-criteria decision multi-criteria decision makings. This is another models that help you to compare several options available. For example, here, where to locate the plan. You can use a mixed integer programming as well, but sometimes we also use this one MCDM. For example, you have several plans. You want to decide according to the cost, to the capacity, and then to the um, availability, the ability to coverage the customer demand. So you can use this MCDM approach. Another one is decision tree. I think we can also discuss this one later on, and simulation models. But some of them may not be discussed in very much detail, just a quick through. But if you're interested on it, I think you can ask me about it, and I can provide you some more materials. This one, the one I talked earlier about how to create a best route for your vehicles, is called the vehicle routing problem model. It's also part of integer programming problems, but it's more specific to routing problems. Okay, this is just a quick preview. Okay, now this is the concept. Okay, the supply chain modeling approach that we talk in this class is based on approach that we call an analytical approach. Okay, if you have ever heard keywords about data analytics, this is pretty much similar, which basically how to utilize data, okay, to have the decision maker doing a more informed decisions. Okay, a decision making that is based on data we call analytical approach. Okay, if we break down into more details, uh, we can divide the analytical approach into these three, or some people have it four, which be called like this. Again, I put it in the pyramids because it represents which one you should go first before you have the other one. Okay, what do I mean by that? Basically, we have three. Okay, but sometimes it mentioned as a four because descriptive sometimes also plus diagnostic approach. Okay, so basically before you do the upper layer like predictive and prescriptive, you need to have descriptive first. Okay. Descriptive analytics, and then you can go to diagnostic analytics, and then you can have a predictive, and then you can do the prescriptive. Okay, like if we illustrate it as a medical practitioners. Okay, if you have some disease, you need to see the symptoms first, right? The symptoms, and then you describe the symptoms, right? For example, the symptoms is that I have fever, I have cough, and then uh, I have anosmia, for example. You need to describe it very well. Then you can predict. Oh, maybe you got COVID, something like that. And then you check it more details. And then you can do, oh, because of this, and then we predict this will be happen in 3 days. So you need to do the isolation, for example. But anyway, in the supply chain modeling problems, the first step, descriptive, is basically to describe what happens in the process, in the activities that you collect those data come from. So descriptive analytics tools is much to do with the simple statistics, like seeing the means of the data, the variance, and then to do the visualization, to see the correlation from one variable to another variables. It is often to use the dashboard like data visualization tools, for example, graph charts and diagrams. Okay, so it is pretty much very important things that you need to do before you able to move on to the next process, like diagnostics. So diagnostic is basically you use the descriptive data to diagnose, okay, this is a symptom of what. Okay, okay, for example, uh from the data that I collect, uh, it is often, I can often see that my customer is not satisfied with the products that is they are getting. So let's say if you do survey to your customer, they always give 3 star or 4 star. I don't know why, or a 5 star, for example. And then you see you collect the comments, and then you create a chart, and then you diagnose. Oh, okay, this is shown a customer that is not satisfied. And then you check, okay, from the comments, we collect the data, and then we see that, oh, it's often because of the delivery is late. Okay. Or maybe not that one, maybe, oh, the quality of the product is not okay. And then, okay, because of the delivery, so you need to go on to collect more delivery data, and then collect more, like, for example, if the quality production data. Okay, so you collect several data from your department in your business. Then you can do some prediction. Okay, prediction, for example, predictions can predicts the supply data or predicts the customer data. Okay, if you predict from customer data from your downstream of your supply chain, it's called normally for demand forecasting. Okay, but if you supply for the data from your supplier, uh, um, normally it's for help you to to do better planning for your productions. Okay, for example, predictive data, it's most often for, okay, um like example, if you want to produce clothing. Okay, so let's say clothings will have their different styles along the years. Okay, maybe we are in the tropical area, we don't really have much differences along the years, but for country that has like 4 seasons in a years, they may have different set of clothing style that they will be purchased by the end customer. So in order to have it better planned for the clothing industry, they need to create a good forecasting. Okay, able to predict well will help you to able to prepare well for your business. And then now you have the data from the descriptive and predictive. Then you can create a models, which we call prescriptive model, to associate all those data being collected from the predictive analytics and descriptive analytics to create the best decision possible. Okay, so we are going to play in the predictive as well as prescriptive area for this class. Okay, if you want to work with the descriptive analytics, that's totally fine. But I want you to have more efforts to provide more to first to try to exercise with the tools that we are going to learn. Okay, we will learn several predictive tools as well as perspective tools. Okay. Okay, here is previously we talked about the importance of supply chains. Now we talk about what is the benefit that you can expect if you have a good supply chain models. Okay, you can do a better informed decision making. Of course, before you make a decision, it's not always based on your guts, but if you have a better analytical tools result, you can have a better informed decisions. Okay, those will result can be in cost efficiency, risk reductions, more agile supply chain, or sometimes even have a better sustainable supply chains decision. And then, of course, this one will be part of it: supply chain optimizations and the future planning. Okay, and maybe this will be some of the last slides that I'm going to discuss for now. Okay, first of all, when we Okay, now we talk more in the engineering part of it. Okay. These books these materials I took from the books that I also inform you in the our LMS, learning management system. So basically, when we do the modeling process, first step is that we need to able to formulate the model well, and then we need to able to collect data, because bad data will effect to a bad model. Bad model will create a bad solutions. So that we don't want that. So if you don't have a good data yet, I will suggest you maybe try to refine those data to represent your problems better, and then create an alternative of solutions. Either methods you are going to use, you are going to give solutions to the decision maker, and then evaluate each of the design or solution alternative, and then you need to select, then you will evaluate. So in practice, this is the steps. However, for our turn projects, maybe you don't have the chance to evaluate it's in place, yeah, when it comes to play, but at least you can create until it's you can recommend which one will be the best. Okay, next, this is the some of the more details. Okay, models, okay, here were a representative of a real world system. Okay, so our goals is to create a model that can represent how the real world systems works. So in order to have a good representative, you need to get a good inputs. Input can be in terms of parameters, data that you generate or you can collect, and then it will be used to determine a decision variables. Okay, decision variables that will give us the output or the suggestions that we provide to the decision maker. Okay, here the input from the real world models, the output will be the decisions that we suggest to them. Okay, it's a closed loop actually. If you see here, if you have a chance to implement it, you also can later on when you works, yeah, apply it in practice, you can revise it along the way, because the decisions that you suggest to the decision maker, if it's really applied, it will impact to the real world systems. Okay? And then you need to recreate the models after it's impacted. Okay, here will be the type of supply chain model. I think this is a pretty basic. If you learn operation research, we know that there are two types of models called deterministic and stochastics. Deterministic is where you assumes that several variables, inputs that you generate, can be simplified into a known and a constant input. So it's useful to model a predictable and stable system, normally for a long-term planning. However, the limitation of this one, it may subtract the accountability of real world systems. So it may not consider the uncertainty and variability. But it's a good start for modeling a simple system. And a more complex one is called stochastic model. It embed a lot of uncertainty in the systems. And then, however, the more complexity you take account, the more complex your model is going to be. And then, okay, this one I think is a repeating slide, so I don't discuss it again. The use of supply chain model, it's simply similar with the benefit of it, and then you can read it by yourself. This one is another example on how supply chain modeling can help. For example, this one we discussed. Amazon is having a good supply chain model, right? Especially for their last mile delivery. But here in this video, you can see a case study of how Walmart also trying to catch up with that and then try to embed a lot of supply chain analytics approach in their system. But I don't play it here. You can see it by yourself later. Uh, the challenge. Okay, what is the challenge of applying modelings in supply chain? First is that most often is the availability of the data and the accuracy of the data, because it's difficult to generate data that is reliable, and when sometimes it's not enough to represent the real systems. And then since supply chain business is a very complex system, so we need we as an analyst need to be able to model the simplified those complexity to be able to model well in your analysis. And then your models need to also adapt to change. Okay, system is often change, so how your simplified model can adapt to those changes also important. And again, uncertainty and variability, which one adding more uncertainty and variability of course will help you to represent model very well, but the more complex it is, the less adaptable it is. Okay, this is another how to give a close model and reality uh, your models with the realities to do the system in the reality. And then yeah, and then so on, like predictive limitations. It's very difficult to predict the future, so we will discuss this more in the forecasting approach. Another thing is that, okay, I often found when I discuss with a company to apply the supply chain analytics is that they don't have the enough resource that understand these topics. So sometimes, for example, oh, I want to use mathematical modeling approach, but they don't really have those resource in their company. So it's difficult to apply it in practice for this particular case. And over reliance on models. Okay, we know that some model provide you a good insight, but sometimes model can be wrong as well. Okay, so in business, there is nothing as certain. So even though your model is very fit, you need to also think about it again before making the decision. Okay, this is probably the last one. After this, we will see more and more topics in the supply chains discussing about the digital supply chains. So what is digital supply chains? Is, well, basically the same topics that we discussed in the previous, in the early slides, talk about digital supply chain management. However, it emphasized more on how the information and communication technology become determining factors on the success of those supply chains. So most of them, the discussion about digital supply chain also talk about how to digitalize the conventional data from first digitizations and then move to digitalizations and then finally digital transformations. This is three important keywords that is most often discussed in the digital supply chains. Okay, this is the formal definitions. You can check about it. And then there are three pillars for the digital transformations that discuss in the supply chain. First is data, and then automation, okay, like robotics and stuff, and even simple robotics technology also embedded in the automation. Connectivity, including the internet, industrial internet of things, and then artificial intelligence that we getting more and more hype right recently. And then the future digital ecosystem, for example, like blockchain. Okay, I don't discuss it in details, but I put the several example and definition here. Okay, I think that's about it for my talk and session today. I've done the recording, so I'll stop